Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and a few things of interest in this episode of Discovery. First of all, the ship itself is being upgraded to 32nd century standards. Programmable matter, disconnected nacelles, and some other things they're not telling us about. In fact, a new way of interacting with the spore drive. Instead of having needles stuck in him now, Stamets only has to immerse his hands in a gel that leaves no sticky residue. That would be, I'm hoping it's not 1,000 years before they find a gel that doesn't have sticky residue. There's that, and there's also the new badges. Now, in the 23rd century, where Discovery came from, the badges were nothing more than just an emblem that was on the uniforms. In Discovery, they also had the rank pips on them. But in this century, it jumps over the TNG com badge idea and goes straight to what they call a TRICOM badge, which is a tricorder, communicator, and personal transporter. Now, this personal transporter feature is something that was used for comic effect, as Linus was not quite sure how to do it. He found himself in the captain's seat at one point in a turbo lift looking for the science lab and some other things to provide a little break in the tension here and there. Otherwise, we know from Tilly, she says, this is my new favorite thing when they activate the tricorder function. So there is a lot of new technology and a lot of new crew training to try to get used to the new Federation and the new Starfleet. So it is in the plot a danger to all of this, as Burnham has gone back to her old ways of taking the law into her own hands and going wherever she thinks she needs to. And in this case, it was to retrieve a black box. And, of course, Book, who found this black box and then got himself captured. We know that because when his ship came back into under the shield of the Starfleet headquarters, the communicator activates, and it's Grudge the cat, which this actually happened to me once. We had a cat that walked over an answering machine, and when it said, record your message at the beep, the cat meowed. So the next time we call the house to check messages, the phone answers meow, and I wish I still had that answering machine, by the way. So I know it's something that's possible to do. So it was kind of a nice touch. There are a couple of jokes at the expense of the cat where Tilly is looking for Burnham and finds Grudge in her room on her bed. And she says to the cat, where's Burnham? Did you eat her? And various other things such as that. We find that the cat and Linus are our comic relief characters, it seems, in all of this. As I said, Burnham was going to disobey orders after taking her idea to the captain to retrieve this black box. We'll call it a MacGuffin because it drives the plot of this episode. And in driving the plot, she has to go back, rescue Book, get the black box, and come back to Starfleet. Of course, the captain has said that we're trying to make nice with the new Starfleet command. We don't want to start running off on our own missions here. And she, of course, ignored that, manages to recruit Giorgio with a fairly decent speech. And when she finally takes a break, Giorgio says, "You had me at unsanctioned mission." She had a number of good jokes in this particular episode, too many really to talk about. As they arrive at this planet that is run by the local mob of Osiris, I believe, is the name of the leader of all this, who's unseen, but a kind of dim-witted nephew, which is kind of running this place, comes in, and we find all kinds of remnants of things that some have been more recognizable than others, like a Type 2 phaser from Star Trek The Next Generation, the later seasons of it. The first one looked kind of like a dustbuster, and I think they decided that it would be actually a little more ergonomic if they got something that looked more like a gun. So they did that in later seasons. Also, we have mention of we also have mentions of self-sealing stem bolts. These were first mentioned in an early episode of Deep Space Nine. Nog and Jake Sisko decide to try to raise some money by selling off something that or buying fairly cheaply a whole cargo of something. They didn't know what it was until they got it. It was self-sealing stem bolts. They didn't know what that was, and they never really explained it and still don't. But most of what this episode is about is what's happening to Georgiou. We saw some of it at the end of the last show, where she is kind of lost in thought, it would look like, or daydreaming, or in some kind of trance. And what we found is that she's having flashbacks, kind of a PTSD, I believe, of things that have happened to her before. She mentions in two of the flashbacks about a son. Apparently she had a son and had lost that son, died, or was murdered or something. And it only started after this debriefing that she had with our mysterious fellow in glasses, who seems to know more about the Terran universe than you would expect anybody to. There's some suspicion that perhaps he is more than he says he is. Perhaps he's from that universe himself. Perhaps he is has some kind of connection with Georgiou and knew more about her than how just to get under her skin. So I think we'll find out more about him as time goes on. But in a couple of places where the chips were down and Georgiou was not there to help in the fight, it was a tense moment or two, and she is in no better stance to know what's going on than Burnham was. But it is something of concern for her character and obviously of Burnham too. As a result of the unauthorized mission that she took on, she is dressed down by the Admiral, who says, "I only didn't throw you in the brig because you saved lives." But on top of that, it puts Saru in a very uncomfortable situation. Tilly brings it up before anybody does, that she was off base and she was putting the entire crew at risk, and it was even Burnham thought it was proper that she was busted from being first officer to just science officer. And it's possible that even if Saru had not gone that way, other members of the crew might not have had the same respect for her as first officer in light of what's gone on here. Her just friends situation with Book is more than she's saying, in so much that she would risk everybody on the ship so that she could save him. And while the black box provided some information, it is unveiling the fact that there are other things that can narrow down where the burn happened and how it spread in Starfleet records. So there's something that Admiral Vance is not telling us as well. So there's some good action sequences here, and I think it's the first time they ever showed anybody's head blow up. I mean, during one of the Next Generation episodes, they did shoot somebody until their head disintegrated, but this one just blew up. We're probably going to hear more of this mob alliance that has Starfleet so taken up. And we're going to see the problem that Starfleet has now between trying to find out what caused the burn and just controlling criminal elements around them. It will be interesting to see just where the allegiances lie and if Admiral Vance is hiding something. So, with that, we hope that you enjoyed the episode. If you have something you'd like to say, please let us know in the comments. And while you're there, why not subscribe? If you've not done so already, we certainly would appreciate it. And until next time, don't go far.